Zenless Zone Zero just released its new Simulated Battle Trials Endgame mode in its 1.3 update, and right now this is by far my favorite game mode. I think it has a ton of potential, especially with its endless mode. So today, I want to go over how exactly this mode works and give a little bit of strategy and tips as to how to go about clearing it if you are struggling. And kind of just make this a guide, and then at the end I am going to talk about the endless mode a bit as well, since that is something I am very excited about. I also do want to preface this video by saying that as of me recording this, I have only cleared through floor 20 on my account, so while I don't have any experience in the actual endless mode yet, I do understand the gist of how it works, so I am going to comment on it towards the end. But if I get more information or if there are further updates to this mode, then I'll cover those in future videos. So at its core, the Simulated Battle Trials are a permanent tower-like game mode where you will defeat enemies on each floor to progress higher in the tower. There are 25 floors in the main tower, and after clearing floor 25, you'll begin Endless Mode as a way to push the limits of not just your account, but also the limits of your skill as a player. But for now, let's focus on these first 25 floors. These floors are split into 5 floor segments, with every 5th floor having a boss to fight. This can either be one of the elite enemy mini bosses, or it can even be one of the Notorious Hunt weekly kind of bosses. At the beginning of each section, you'll have to choose which characters and bang boos that you can bring into these floors. At the beginning at floor 1, you can only select 3 characters and 3 bang boos, but upon clearing every 4th floor, you'll get an additional character slot for you to pick a character for. Now you might be asking, why would I need to select more than 3 characters? Well, the reason for that is that for each 5 floor section, your characters retain their HP between battle. So if you end up taking a lot of damage or your character is defeated in a fight, you might end up in a situation where you're going to need more than just those 3 characters, because you might need to switch them out so you can have a better time fighting the next floor. If you're really early on in the tower, like the first 10 floors, this probably won't be super necessary if you have characters that are level 60 and pretty decently built up. But once you get to the higher up floors, at least floor 15 and higher, you may find yourself needing to switch out characters, and that's just mainly because enemies are going to be dealing a lot more damage to you. So having those extra character slots does actually end up being extremely helpful, and it can really impact your overall performance, so it's really important to strategize around it. So once the boss enemy is defeated, you'll be able to reselect the characters that you'll be able to bring during your battles for the next 5 floor section. And this is really good because you're going to be able to factor in the enemy's weaknesses and resistances, so you're not going to be stuck with the same characters that you picked on floor 1 when you get to floor 15, for example. Which is really nice, so that you can reconsider depending on how many characters you have built up, and you can bring the best characters for those sections. And all of the 5 floor sections, they pretty much, within the same section, they keep the same or very similar weaknesses and resistances. So that'll be nice to help for the strategy of which characters you're going to be bringing. And also, to further increase the difficulty in this mode, certain enemies will be able to activate the demonized state upon fulfilling certain criteria. And that criteria is different with each floor and each of the 5 floor sections, but the demonized state will increase the amount of damage these enemies will deal by 50%, and it will also reduce the damage that the enemy receives by 25%. And this right here, to really buff the enemies, not just in how much damage they can do to you, but also lowering the amount of damage you can do to them, is extremely powerful, and I think it takes the difficulty even further than Shiyu Defense, since you are buffing the enemies way more in this tower mode here. So that's pretty much the general idea of the Simulated Battle Trials tower. So now let's talk strategy. Let's talk about how you should go about clearing the tower. Now, I am not going to go into oh, you should bring this specific character here and this specific character there, because everyone's account is going to be different. People may come to this video months down the line, and if I talk about a character who's out now, they might not have had a rerun yet. So because of so many different situations, I'm going to be a lot more general in terms of my advice and what you should be thinking about, because we're really in Zenless, any character can do it once you have them built up and fully invested in. Obviously, some are going to be better than others, and the more recent characters will probably end up being better from when you're watching this video. But yeah, for the most part, not really going to focus on specific characters here. So I feel that the simulated battle trials does require a bit of a different mindset compared to Shield Defense and other like endgame modes and other gacha games you may have played, because while how much damage you can do is important, I do feel that once you're getting to these higher up floors, there is a heavier emphasis on learning and adapting to the enemy's attack patterns so that you can take as little damage as possible. In my experience, when I fought the bosses on floors 15 and 20, there were several moments where I either took more damage than I wanted to, or I just straight up lost the character because I wasn't familiar with the boss mechanics compared to how I should have been. And that's partially with me not fighting the bosses as much as I should have outside of the tower, but also because of how much extra damage they do, there's even less room for mistakes compared to just like the weekly notorious hunts and other, game modes where you fight these bosses. And also considering that most of the enemies in the tower are level 70, and they will also have a condition to have the demonized buff, there are going to be a lot of scenarios where you might not just be able to brute force your way through fights. You're going to have to really learn these attack patterns. Now, I know I said I'm not going to talk about like specific characters, but as of making this video, it's pretty clear to a lot of people, and myself included, that if you did pull for Caesar, Caesar is the best defensive character for this mode right now because of her counters and her shields as well. So because of that, you're going to be able to get some really good extra leeway in terms of getting hit and also being able to just counter things with Caesar. That's going to make the game mode a bit easier. But really any defense character, if they have some kind of defensive mechanic like shields, they're going to be able to help you out a bunch as well. Like even for me, I use Seth on my account, and I was able to use his shields to help me a bit against the floor 20 Jane boss. So having any character with a defensive ability like that is actually going to be super helpful, and I think that they're going to shine in this mode, especially if you go more towards the endless mode, which we're going to talk about in a bit here. You also do want to take note of the conditions for the activation and sometimes as well the removal of the demonized effect on each floor, because some of the floors, they do also have a condition to remove the effect from the enemy, so you do want to play around that so that you're not having to fight these super amped up enemies for so long. And I think it's just going to be super helpful to get rid of that buff from enemies when you can, so that you're not doing decreased damage to them and you're not taking 50% extra damage. But then outside of that, you just need to do the simple, make sure you have the weaknesses so that you're dealing as much damage as you can. And of course, learning like their attack patterns, like I've already said, to have as good of a run as possible, because your HP does matter a lot in this mode. And because of the nature of this mode and how hard it gets, this is not a mode for someone who's like just hopping in, you like just hit max level characters and you're like, all right, I'm gonna take on this mode and win. This is a mode where you gotta build up several characters to be able to factor in all the different types of weaknesses and all the different types of resistances that these enemies have. So this is not a mode that is built for like mid-level players in terms of progression. This is a mode for someone who has built up several characters, has a very solid account, and I think that's a good thing, honestly, because like Shiyu defense, you can grind through that refresh over time. But I think I think for this mode, the tower, it is going to really test not just the strength of your account, but also your skill as a player. So if you can't get through these floors right now, I think it's fine. Just you gotta keep building up your account to get up to 25. I definitely have to revisit my my ice team for floors 21 through 25, so that's why I'm stuck at floor 20 right now. But yeah, that's pretty much everything for the strategy and my tips on how to clear the tower. So now I just want to end off here by talking about the endless mode, and I think that this is where the true potential of the tower mode is. So like I'd mentioned, after you clear floor 25, you get access to the endless mode, which gives you the opportunity to really test your skill as a player and also just test the limits of your account. And the big difference between endless mode and the regular floors is that for the regular floors, once you clear the boss on every 5th floor, your HP resets, you get to pick your characters again. Endless mode, your HP will not recover under any circumstance. meaning that you basically have to play perfectly. Because with how strong these enemies are, plus their demonized effects, if you get hit once, you're taking a lot of damage. Obviously, if you have a defensive character, it's not as bad, but even still, you can take a lot of damage, and as the floors keep getting harder, you're going to just be taking more damage. And you'll probably get to a point where the enemies could probably even one-shot you if you get far enough in Endless Mode. Now, the one thing that I think kind of sucks with Endless Mode right now is that there's not really any, like, too many rewards attached to it. You do get an avatar for clearing floor 30, which is only the first 5 floors of Endless Mode. But I do think that players who are really passionate about learning the intricacies of Zenless and, you know, coming up with new tech and having a place to use tech, I think they're going to use this Endless Mode and this tower as a very strong testing ground for that, which I think is really good. Plus, if Hoyoverse updates this over time, whether it is, you know, giving us like a secondary like tower kind of thing that with maybe like different mechanics, or, you know, maybe refreshing the rewards for the tower, we can go through it again every like few updates. That would also be very cool as well to keep this mode alive and not make it grow stagnant. But that is everything I have for this simulated battle trials mode for Zenless. I really enjoy the mode, but let me know in the comments how you all feel about it so far. But with that, that's going to be the end of the video here. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed and want to see more content from me, definitely be sure to hit that subscribe button. But with that, I will see you all next time.